Thank you for this invitation to speak at this forum. I want to take the opportunity to talk about two things that I think we're all very familiar with. One is biodiversity, and the other is evolution. And whether you believe in evolution or not, and whether you think biodiversity is important or not, what I want to talk to you about today is how both of those things are really mankind's, humankind's last hope. We live on a planet right now that has more people on it than in the history of the planet. So if you took every single person, beginning with Adam and Eve, if you believe in Adam and Eve, or if you believe when the Homo sapiens species first came about 100,000, 80,000 years ago, if you believe in that, and you took all the people that have lived on the planet up until now, and add them all together, there's more people that reside on the planet right now than all of them in the history of humankind. So we live in this planet where we have competing for natural resources. We live in a planet where the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. We live in a country that comprises about 4 to 5% of the world's population, uses about 25% of the world's resources. And yet, we seem to have, like we just heard from the last talk, it's our right. We have the right to do this. It's our destiny. And actually, it's just not sustainable. And so, when I talk about biodiversity and I talk about evolution, I really want to talk about what's right up there, right there, periodic table. You know, you look up there, and that's just a bunch of dead elements. Any one of those things by themselves are nothing. They're dead elements. I look at a few right at the beginning there. See the number 1, hydrogen, number 6, carbon, number 7, nitrogen, number 8, oxygen. Those 4 right there. That's mostly what we're made of those 4. There's a few others in there. You probably see a P up there, phosphorus. You probably see an S, sulfur. Those are probably the next 2 of importance. Then after that, there's not much else that we're made of. Yeah, a little bit of selenium, maybe some zinc, but mainly those 6 elements. That's it. On their own, they're perfectly dead. But in the right combination on this planet, at the right distance from the sun, with the right amount of water, life has evolved. Or, if you want to believe, life has been created by some divine force. I don't care what you believe, but I think we're all in agreement that we're here today and that we are all living, despite maybe some philosophical differences as to how life originated. And the reason I want to talk to you about biodiversity is because the way all those chemicals have been combined to make living things has resulted in a chemical composition in all the plants, animals, and bacteria that could never be duplicated by all the chemical factories in all the drug companies in the world. You see, life's been on the planet for 3.5 billion years. And life has survived fires and floods, a comet collision that wiped out the dinosaurs, mountain heights, ocean depths, ice ages. Life has been able to adapt. And the way that adaptation takes place is by different chemical combinations of elements. Amino acids that come together that make unique proteins, carbohydrates that have long chains, fatty acids that can get together and make membranes. That kind of chemistry takes a long time, 3.5 billion years. And there's no way that DuPont, Merck, Glaxo, Monsanto, no matter what they say, Better Living Through Chemistry, can duplicate that. And so this has all come up in various animals, in various plants, and that every time an animal goes extinct, and it happens every single day, not animals, but plants too, every time an organism goes extinct, you are losing some extremely unique chemistry. There goes the cure for cancer. There goes a new birth control pill. undergoes a type of a fertilizer that could be used to double the yields of plants. We don't know, but extinction ends the game. So what I want to talk to you about right now is a very common Minnesota critter, one that is really considered a pest by many. And when I say a pest, I mean it makes holes in gardens, it makes holes in earthen dikes. Golf course attendants hate these things. You ever seen the movie Caddyshack? I mean, these guys make holes all over the place. Worthless. Considered worthless. In fact, in western Minnesota counties, there's this thing called gopher bounties. Because they're such a pain that if you bring in their tail or some feet or some evidence that you've killed one, you'll get $1.50, $2, because they're such a problem. So they're like the cockroach of the rodent world. You know, very common in Minnesota. But there is an institution here that shows a bit of affection for them. They've adopted them as their athletic nickname. It's also called the golden gopher. But in general, kind of a nasty pest species. Well, I'm just here to tell you, in terms of biodiversity, you don't have to worry about these guys going extinct. They're all over the place. But because they can do this right here, because they can hibernate, they can pull off things that most mammals can't. And everyone in this room is a mammal. And that is that when they hibernate like this, they go through some physiological changes that may hold the secret to understanding stroke, heart disease, surviving hypothermia, improving organ preservation. When an organ is transplanted from one person to another, you have to be able to preserve that organ for a certain amount of time. When an animal is in hibernation, it puts its organs in cold storage. It doesn't use them. It does it naturally. It survives at heartbeats that are only a few beats per minute. So this critter right here, it's found all throughout the Midwest. And you can see right there, it sort of clips through northeastern Minnesota where the Duluth is. The reason you don't see it up in the far reaches of the Arrowhead is because it lives in sandy soils. But if you go just a little bit south of here, places like, you guys have heard of like Finlayson or Hinkley, Sandstone, they're all over the place. And if you live in the Twin Cities, they're pretty common. These guys are found all over the place. They're not going to go extinct. They're not going to be something that we're going to ever be able to eradicate because they live fairly well with humankind in agricultural areas. But because they can do this, we should take them seriously. A heart rate which is normally 300 to 400 beats per minute, that's common in small rodents. When they hibernate, it's 3 to 10 beats per minute. Oxygen consumption, that's 2% of normal. Body temperature, 2 to 5 degrees C. If you're not familiar with the centigrade scale, this right here, that's our 98.6 Fahrenheit, 37. That's our body temperature. Our body temperature, ground squirrel's body temperature, typical mammalian temperature. 2 to 5 C, that's about 38 Fahrenheit, 40. That's their body temperature. Well, this would be profound hypothermia. You're dead. 2% oxygen consumption, that's a stroke. Your brain is gone. 3 to 10 beats per minute, there's no way to move the blood around your body. You're out of here. Yet these guys are fine. Not only are they fine, they do this on a regular basis. We keep them in a room in the medical school. But the room temperature is 5 degrees. At 5 degrees, their body temperature is 5.5. Just a little bit above. You see that? I'm taking that's a rectal thermometer right there. 5.5 degrees, okay? He's alive. He's just hibernating. Not only do they hibernate, but all year long, what they do is they go into hibernation nice and fat. See that fall active? They feed in August and September when there's plenty of grains in the field. They eat lots of seeds. They get big and fat. And then, so they have their last supper in October. And they don't eat again until April. And you don't see them until spring when they pop out. They're much thinner. But throughout the hibernation season, they have these things called IBAs. You see the IBA up there, interbout arousal, where the body temperature is warm enough where they wake up, they reposition themselves, sometimes they urinate, they go right back into hibernation again. You see that? Back down on the body temperature. So they go up and down, up and down, up and down. When that happens, you get an explosion in body temperature. That's what you see there on that y-axis, body temperature. but you also get an explosion in heart rate, an explosion in oxygen consumption. So when you go from really cold to really warm to really cold to really warm in these short amounts of time, there's all sorts of insults that a body would take. Things that are called reperfusion injury, things that cause the damage that happens with a stroke, or a myocardial infarction, just a fancy word for a heart attack. Yet these guys survived it just fine. Why? How? Well, if they were extinct, we'd never know. But here in Minnesota, we're fortunate enough where they're around, they're common. And hibernation itself is fairly common.